Hello, I'm Mark Dunn, the editor of Portfolio Institutional Magazine, and welcome to the first of 3 interviews with asset manager NN Investment Partners on the topic of engagement. Engagement is a big part of sustainable or ESG investing. If you want to use your capital to make a positive impact to our world, there's little point investing in companies with perfect environmental or social profiles. You have to work with management to make the changes to improve a company's sustainability profile. Investors engaging with management is how we reduce damage to the environment and improve inequality. Now, I've made it sound easy, but it's not. That's why we're doing these interviews. And what better way to start than to look at meaningful engagements, that is how to do it effectively. And to help me, I'm joined with Irina. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Mark. Nice
would
to
you
be
like to
here.
tell us a few things about yourself?
So my name is Irina van der Sluis. I work and live in The Hague, the Netherlands, and I'm a senior responsible investment specialist here at our office.
Okay, good to have you. Good to have you. Perhaps you could start right at the top and just explain to me exactly where does engagement fit in with responsible investing?
Yeah, thank you. So I love engagement. Engagement is a great tool we have in the toolbox of responsible investment, also called RI. And I strongly support an NIP's approach of inclusion over exclusion, meaning that we believe that having a conversation with companies and sectors about the need to be more sustainable in our economy and society is preferable rather than divesting from them. And so we play our part as a financial organization in this realm, but I want to emphasize for sure that we are not the only stakeholders here. So it's important also to realize that when we talk about a transition that we all are going through, and hopefully to make it a just transition, that we need governments to put that base floor of social and human rights and also protection of environment and nature.
Can you give me some examples of such thematic engagements?
Yes, so maybe just picking up on the role that we play as a financial organization in this topic. And hopefully we get to a just transition and a systemic change for sure. And hopefully also post-pandemic, we see that we are reaching this tipping point that ESG and sustainability is getting more mainstream. I think that it is important to say that responsible investment makes business sense. RI makes business sense. So it's not just philanthropy. It is here to stay, and NLP believes that we can really put our capital to work and create value. And engagement, like you mentioned, Mark, is really the glue that connects business and sustainability, that makes possible the dialogue we have around ESG topics and, of course, profitability, because they both are as important in this just transition. We apply engagement in various ways. Maybe one step back, we have an RI framework, and engagement and voting is one part of that. And other parts are restriction criteria for business that we deem not so future-proof and value creation wise, ESG integration with our own ESG lens, and being transparent. We have to be really transparent in our RI report. And then other means around these issues, so we can get feedback from important stakeholders, as I mentioned, the government, but also other NGOs and academics in this field, and peers, of course. Important also to emphasize that engagement is sometimes an umbrella term. So often people use it, but we like to really be precise in defining it, meaning that it is different from ESG dialogues. A lot of my colleagues, so I'm in the RI team, a lot of my colleagues, the portfolio managers, analysts, have regular ESG dialogues, and they are as important, but they are different. They're a bit more ad hoc. They tackle a certain issue that comes up. There might be controversy engagement. But what I'm talking here about today with you is indeed thematic engagement, meaningful engagement. These are longer processes, and these have really sustainability objectives. We usually don't do them alone, we do them in collaborative approaches, and they have a time frame usually of 3 to 5 years. And so we really want companies to adopt sustainable business practices. And so I mentioned the slight pitfalls of engagement, because not only that it is an umbrella term that everybody uses all the time, but also that we really have to be able to see if we have that impact that we are looking for. And that's always the $1,000,000 question, because you're talking about these big world problems and you're one of the stakeholders. So you can hardly ever say, okay, this positive developments because of our engagement. It's usually more variables at play, but still we have defined it in a way that we hopefully can make it as much as data driven and with proof points in the end. And also for that, I'm really glad that my team, the RI team, is part of the innovation platform at NNFP, meaning that I have next to me creative colleagues that know all about data and AI, and that can really make the engagement ESG world much more data driven. Coming back to our approach indeed around meaningful engagement. We have a thorough selection process to determine what will be the themes and the objectives in the next 2-3 years. Of course, the world is changing around us all the time. So this is the guidance we have for 2-3 years. But then, of course, we are as flexible as possible to be jumping on topics that pop up. I mean, just these days, look at what's happening on our continent, obviously, but also the Me Too or Black Lives Matter, all these issues that pop up that can come into play as well. But anyway, we have that selection process every 2-3 years to see what teams we want to deep dive in on the certain pillars of environment, thriving nature, on the G, the governance, the strong governance, and on the S, so the social human rights realm. And we do that by doing our desk research and really look into the topics, but also in close cooperation, again, with the PMs and analysts and the investment teams, because they know the portfolios, they know the companies and the sectors. So there is a good cooperation going on there. Obviously, we ask our clients what they deem most important for to engage on. So we have surveys for clients and other stakeholders that are really experts on some of these sustainability issues. Then we have the help of third-party service providers. So in our case, it's Sustainalytics, and it's wonderful to work with them because they are a rating agency, but they have engagement experts. And these are people from all walks of life, different backgrounds, nationalities, have the ability to sometimes speak Mandarin or other Brazilian, Portuguese languages that help make a connection with companies on the ground, because that is key for meaningful engagement, not to have some more theoretical exchange, but really have a deep dive, a personal connection. And that is where Sustainalytics, it's all of this jargon, Sustainalytics as a company comes in. But we also have, for instance, an organization like the UNPRI, the United Nations Principles for Responsible Investment, that set up the Climate Action 100+. And so we are part of that in line with our net zero commitment by 2050. So there is much benefit to have these external service providers and big collectives like UNPRI and Climate Action to work with them. Especially in the last couple of years, we see that a lot of subjects come our way. So we are being asked to engage on a lot of themes. So we have to really make our own decision a little bit there, and also focus, because we cannot cover everything. But of course, climate change is a no-brainer. So climate action, that's really number one. But a couple of months ago, you might remember that we had the COP26 in Glasgow.
Yes.
And deforestation as a way to also tackle climate change, to stop deforestation, to keep the trees and the forests alive, was really a topic that that was coming to us. And we committed together with other asset managers to stop that. And so we're in a deep dive there as well with the UN on that topic. But before actually the COP26, we already had a lot of engagements going on palm oil, which is of course connected to deforestation.
Yes.
Also sustainable protein, soy, the whole animal feed discussion with organizations such as FAIR and also the RSPO, the Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil. Having said that, post-pandemic, you also see that the S of ESG, the social theme, is coming up. There is unfortunately, worry about social cohesion post-pandemic, about livelihoods. So we have a couple of themes there as well that we engage on in a bit of a different way. Sometimes in the nature climate front, we can be a bit more quantitative because it can be measured, carbon, etc., emissions. So the data is a bit more tangible there. And on the social human rights realm, we were always a bit hesitant because, it's more qualitative. It's more, let's say, diplomatic to reach some results there. But we have managed, for instance, together with Sustainalytics, to look at child labor in cocoa for a few years now, and Sustainalytics has been really helpful there. We have had conversations with a lot of cocoa companies around monitoring your supply chain and not just saying, okay, this is our code of conduct and you deal with it and good luck with tackling child labor, but really enabling the farmers there and understanding the local context around child labor and setting up these monitoring systems. Another example would be in the palm oil, not only talking about deforestation and nature preservation, but also about, for instance, women working there and the women's safety. There is now a lot of news coming out around gender-based violence on palm oil plantations. So we talk with Unilever and experts and traders and the RSPO around that issue. And last but not least, as an example, Mark, I want to give the platform Living Wage Financials. We were one of the founding members a few years ago of that Dutch-based investors collective that is tackling this, this issue that for some people is surprising, because what is a living wage? Basically, it says it's human rights. It says that you have to be able to live from your wage, and you can actually set some money aside and send your children to school and maybe have some decent living standard. But in a lot of production countries, think garments, think footwear, apparel, think commodities. The minimum wage, if it exists and if it is enforced at all, it doesn't meet the decent living standards. So we ask companies, investees, to make clear that gap between prevailing wages and living wage benchmarks, and then tell us what they do to close that gap. And this is a more tailor-made engagement whereby we are working really closely together with 18 investors ourselves, become experts ourselves, assess companies annually, and come out during the conference with our results. And I hope I gave you a little bit of a flavor of the range of engagements that we at NNIP are part of. And
yes, you certainly did, yes. And I said at the beginning that I've made this sound easy, and it actually is. And you have given me some of the pitfalls there, but could you talk a bit more about the downsides of working on some of the larger engagements under the UN guidance?
I wouldn't say that there are so many pitfalls necessarily, but the thing is, I mean, I have to be honest here. If you are working with, let's say, 60 investors in one engagement stream, there can be a bit of a laissez-faire attitude with maybe 50 of them. So you can lean back a little bit and not really being challenged to really become engaged yourself, let's say, in that stream. And again, we need those larger collectives, absolutely. And that's why we are wholeheartedly part of them, because we need the leverage. We need more investors. We need all of them involved. But again, some of the obstacles we face is that, yeah, how do you get consensus also with 60 on board? And, you know, they are coming from different cultural backgrounds. There's North America, there's European investors, so there's Asian investors. So yeah, it's a bit of a UN. But yeah, we like a challenge and we like to cross bridges.
Good. Okay, so what do you consider to be meaningful engagement, and when does it become effective?
Yeah, good question. So I alluded to a few things. So before you set up something, whether it's your own initiative or more collective, you have to really do your research. You have to engage stakeholders, again, NGOs, academics, peers, trade unions, governments. You have to know what's going on the floor, on the ground. And so Sustainalytics can help with that as well. Rights holders is a term that is coming up more and more. So rights holders means actually the people being affected. So hopefully post-pandemic, we can go on site visits again in a lot of these supply chains, because I think it's really important to see for yourself what is going on. And then on the other spectrum, so you have rights holders on the ground, and the other spectrum, it's my board. You have to get your board on board, because again, it's not philanthropy, it's not doing good, it's really connected to our own business model. So, and our profitability and our value creation. So we really have to have our board on board. And luckily we have a CSO, the Chief Sustainability Officer, Mr. Adrie Heinsbroek, my colleague, who is really connected to the board. So I think that is really important. And then we have to set milestones and timelines. We have to stick to them. We have a whole big engagement policy here, and 5 key stages in that process is the initial communication, and then the dialogue is established with the company. The company has to commit. Then we have to look at the company strategy, and last but not least, monitor the company strategy. And so there's a bit of a sticks and carrots going on. Again, we are looking at what is the definition, the objective we have from the start, so the sustainability objective, and after 3-4 years and annually monitoring, what is the progress, and if there is a lack of progress, how can we help companies enable to make progress? So this is a bit, I think, the elements. I have to look a little bit at my cheat sheet here if I missed anything, but no, I think with this, to be meaningful, again, you have to be invested yourself. You have to also have a topic that is really of interest, I guess, and you really want to see that the finance world can make a positive impact there. So personal commitment and passion for it is also very helpful. Last but not least, I also think that we as RI team, as RI specialists, have to make the bridge to the rest of the organization, the PMs, who are really, being also challenged on, again, returns and profits. So we really have to, convince them in a way that this is not eating away the profits, but this is really future-proof and value creation. So that's internal engagement.
Thank you, Irene. Thank you. And finally, we're speaking now in early 2022. So what would you consider to be the main issues in the coming year?
Yeah, indeed. Interesting. I mean, so again, you know, the climate action is just mainstream. I mean, if you're not working on climate, then you have something to explain, I think. And in that slipstream, again, the biodiversity and nature preservation is definitely a topic for a just transition to tackle. Obviously, the social realm is coming more to the forefront post-pandemic. We see the global risk analysis that the WEF is making every year, and you see that social cohesion and livelihoods are really under threat. And so we really have to make the connection and connect the dots between the pillars, because a just transition is about social and climate. So that goes hand in hand. I think it is also really interesting to see how we can even better connect voting or proxy voting with engagement, because I think we can do some escalation there sometimes, and that can work hand in hand, and that can really improve the the action that we are looking for within a company or a sector for systemic change. And I also think I mentioned already AI and our innovation platform that we are part of, that we have to be more creative in looking for data, because there is so much now out there. For instance, if you look at satellite imagery around deforestation or bioacoustics, there is really some creativity out there. And luckily, my team and my colleagues have connections there and pick that up. And we can use that engagement to actually have meaningful talks and not just say, we like you to work on modern slavery, child labor, climate, corporate governance, but actually prove with data, this is going on. And if you track progress, then this is a lag, or this is actually progress you're making. So data, innovative data, is something that I look forward to as well for this year.
Irina, thank you very much for that. That was fascinating. Thank you for sharing your views with us on this topic. And then that's actually proved to be quite a good introduction to this 3-interview series. So thank you very much. And it was good to speak to you.
With pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.